AV in your ears, that's ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my voice Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you...
Hey, what's up? My name is D. Elliott Woods, and you're listening to the greatest podcast in the universe, Fascination Street, hosted by the one and only Steve Owens, my man. AV in your ears, that's ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my voice Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Dr. Jeffrey Burke. One of the very first things I do is I ask Dr. Burke what he is a doctor in. What kind of doctor is this guy? So he tells me all about that, and that helps lend some credibility to all of the things that we talked about. That said, in this episode, we talk about everything from his 42 years as a talk radio host, where he did over 20,000 episodes of his show. We also talk about why he stopped doing that and transitioned to be the Director of Education for Kokora Life. Kokora Life is a vitamin and herb supplement company that focuses on regenerative agriculture and farming and grows their products in Costa Rica. Some of the things we talk about in this episode are allergies and how to keep those under control. I don't know about you, but I have some pretty bad allergies sometimes where I'm at, and Dr. Burke has a history of allergies as well. He lives in Las Vegas, and that by itself presents a whole set of allergens and whatnot. So we talk about some of those things. We talk about certified organic and what that means. We talk about a twin study and how even with twins, some things that work for one person won't work for the other and vice versa. We also talk about how hard it is to find a trustworthy place to even get the knowledge of what's going to work for us and what's not. What's quackery and what's the real deal. So we talk a lot about how we would even find a trustworthy source for that information. Of course, we talk about what is regenerative agriculture and why it matters. We also talk about inflammation, stress, and diet. Of course, we talk about some of the products that Kokora Life offers and some of the benefits for these products. Whether you get them from Kokora Life or not, they have health benefits. And so we talk about some of the ways that those help us and how to get more out of some of those vitamins. And finally, we talk about Dr. Jeffrey Burke's podcast. It is called Honest Health with Dr. Jeffrey Burke. On his podcast, he talks about and with some of the most influential people in the health and herb industry. He also talks to regular folks. He talks to actors and athletes and people about their lifestyle and their health regimens and what they're taking and why, some of the things that they're doing, whether it's diet or exercise, and why they chose those particular things. To find out more about Dr. Jeffrey Burke, you can go to drjeffreyburke.com. And this is my conversation with the Director of Education for Kokora Life and the host of Honest Health with Dr. Jeffrey Burke, Dr. Jeffrey Burke.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Dr. Jeffrey Burke. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. What an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, dude. I don't know if I've talked to very many people with as much microphone experience as you. Oh my gosh. You had your own show for 20,000 episodes?
Yes, I did.
That's not even a real number.
You know, but you stretch it out over 42 years, then it makes a lot more sense. And, you know, I got yelled at for talking when I was a kid, and now I get paid to talk. It's been wonderful. But no, I ended it a little over a year ago because, you know, terrestrial radio has changed, you know, so dramatically. And after I ended it, I went through massive microphone withdrawal. So I started a podcast, and it's been really fun to be able to re-interview people that I had on 10, 20, 30 years ago to see if their mentality and ideas and philosophies were the same or if they changed. So it's been kind of fun.
I can't imagine many of them stayed the same. Everybody changes.
That's right.
So what we're going to do, Jeffrey, Dr. Burke, is I like to start from the beginning. It helps us understand how the guests got from where they were to where they are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Michigan, born and raised there.
Where?
Outside Ann Arbor.
Okay. All right. So you're not like an 8 Mile guy. Okay. I got you. I got
Nope.
you.
Loved it, was there, went to school there, moved to California.
Why did you move to California?
I just thought there were a lot more opportunities out there. And I was working part-time in a health food store during college just to make bank and waiting on tables and all that kind of stuff. And I figured I could do both of those in California. And I was lucky enough to connect with Dr. Earl Mendel, who was one of the first really big, authors that were in our industry. And he kind of took me under his wing. And, he had a chain of stores out there, big chain, like 180 stores. And I was barely 20. And I went to a radio show with him, and I never gave his microphone back after he handed it to me, and ended up running his stores. And, here we are. I'm 46 years later.
So what did you want to be? I know you were working in health food stores and waiting tables just to pay the bills, but what was the goal? What was the purpose? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I thought I'd be a doctor. I really did. But I decided against going the straight MD medical route. And my grandmother was an herbalist. She was amazing. And I learned a lot from her. And the more I thought, the more I kind of applied the values and everything I was learning. I wanted to work on the other side of the fence. And it wasn't easy back then because we had huge obstacles and we were fighting up against the medical establishment, which today we work a lot more hand in hand with out of probably necessity. But it was still something I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to tap into Mother Nature and see what she provided for us. And it's been an absolutely incredible journey, and still learning every day. And every time you think you know it all, you get a little cocky reality that you don't.
Love that.
So
Now, I keep saying Dr. Jeffrey Burke because you're a doctor. A doctor in what?
I'm a naturopathic practitioner. I'm a master herbalist. I'm also a certified nutritional consultant. Those are things that I did just because I wanted to further my education. And to me, it was really important to be able to have some accolades and things to go along with what I was doing, because the more visible you get in any career, especially if you're dealing with things that have to do with health and well-being, people want some letters, they want some accolades. And for me, it was just another way of just, taking things to the next level. And, it was really fun. It's really funny because, I was on the air for probably 20 years before I decided to go back to school and do all my training. And it's just all of a sudden these letters pop up with your name, your NDMH and all that kind of stuff. And everybody's like, oh, I'll talk to you now. And I'm just like, okay, I'm the same person as I was before. I may know a little bit more now, but it's just kind of weird how we put a lot of emphasis on that. And rather than what the person really is and what they know, it's all about where they've been and what they did, so it's all good.
I agree completely. A bunch of years ago, like 35 years ago, 40 years ago, I started getting into rap music. And I really started listening to, a bunch of groups I never heard of because this kind of music was new to me. And then this guy comes on the scene. His name is Dr. Dre. And I'm like, oh, well, he's a doctor. So I've got to check out what this guy's got to say. And then Motley Crue came out with like Dr. Feelgood. I'm like, well, he's a doctor. He must know what he's talking about. So I think that maybe I'm going to start calling myself Dr. Steve Owens.
I think that would be wonderful and very apropos. I love it.
And then for the letters behind my name, my show is called Fascination Street Podcast. I'm just going to be like Dr. Steve Owens, FSP.
I think it'll work.
I just decided that right now. You inspired me, my friend.
You're funny.
Thank you. You said a couple of times, our industry. What is our industry? You were talking about, yourself, obviously.
I include everybody in it because I think it applies to everyone around me, whether they've tiptoed through it or not, or stuck their foot in the water to test the water. Our industry, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about our natural products industry, the industry of really working on your health and well-being, doing everything you can to be as healthy and to be the best version of yourself as you can. And I think a lot of people have really opened their mind a lot more since when I first began, to the point where we know we need to make changes. The hard part is applying it, and the hard part is sticking with it and not being impatient and wanting results by Friday, because we all do. We all want the magic wand. But when I say our industry, I mean the industry that all of us should be a part of, because it actually applies to us as a whole, but also to every one of us individually to be able to be what we can be and, do everything we can do and be as healthy along the way, and maybe prevent or slow down or maybe remedy some of the health things that we pick up along the way.
Or some of the aging, like you. You look like a little boy.
Filters are great. No,
filters and lighting, folks. I'm going to push back a little bit. You said the hard part of the industry is getting people to apply their knowledge and whatnot, getting people to actually do the thing and then to stick with it. I'm going to disagree with you. The hard part is 3 parts. And the very first part is the knowledge. I think the hardest thing for us these days in 2025 is knowing where to get the knowledge and knowing who to believe and who to trust.
True.
Because right now you could pick any topic. It doesn't matter what the topic is. You could decide that the topic is the color pink. And you can listen to one TV or radio station or network, and it will tell you that the color pink is actually a dark, dark, dark black. And then you can listen to the exact other network, and they will tell you that the color pink is a white.
Agreed.
And so what I don't understand is how people are supposed to navigate this world where we don't know who to trust. Everybody is saying that the other person is a liar. So I think that the number one hardest part of any industry really is gaining the knowledge, like how to know who to trust and where to go to find accurate information. And since this is what you do, I got to ask you, man, how do we know who to trust?
Well, I think we make a lot of mistakes along the way, but that's who we are, especially when it comes to, let's just pick a basic topic, going on a diet and weight loss. People want to lose weight. They want to make a change. They want to make a difference. They're tired of squeezing into their clothes. They don't feel good. They lose their breath, and they know there's an issue. They know there's a problem. So rather than reaching out, let's say going to a really good quality health food store, talking with someone that's been in the industry for a long time that can actually go through things like diet and that kind of stuff, they don't do that. They listen to what their coworkers doing. And their coworkers have been doing this and maybe successfully, but we don't all fit in the same box, so you may be able to meet them at the finish line, but you may need to follow a completely different path. So to your question, I would say, make sure that you're researching. And some of the best research are where you can go somewhere and read studies on the things you're interested in that have been published, which means that they've crossed the T's, they've dotted the I's, they've done it right, it's been published. So I use a lot of PubMed. Because really, to your point, you can go on and click anything you want and somebody will agree with you somewhere on your philosophy. You may be the only person in the world that says this and it's wrong, but you'll have somebody agree with you just so you can say, see, I told you. The other thing is patience. People want instantaneous information and they want instantaneous results. And that's almost impossible to do that because we did not get in whatever situation we are in our life overnight. It took time for us to get this out of shape, this unhealthy, this whatever. On my radio show, I've always kept a philosophy for many, many years that I wanted people to be truthful and honest. And if I knew they weren't, I would end my radio show and I would take the guest off the air because I'm very, very transparent even before the word transparent was even being used. And because I was an influencer before an influencer was even talked about, because I was putting my name on things that I felt were really, really high quality, I wanted to make sure that people always had the tools that they needed. So when I started my podcast, I named it Honest Health because I wanted to have a platform where people could go and get honest and truthful information from the best minds in the industry, showing facts and figures and being able to give people the tools so they ultimately can make up their decision, but they're not doing it blindly. We give them tools because I think today the people that make the best decisions are the ones that ask the questions. And sometimes the ones that are not are stumbling, maybe didn't ask anyone and are just kind of just trying to get a quick response really well, but they didn't do their homework. And I just think that that's really important. But to your point, information, it is very key. And I think that there's plenty of it out there, but then we have to research the research, and that makes it very confusing.
So what I'm hearing is that we should find a piece of information that we think might be true and then research it on our own to make sure that it is accurate and truthful in the way that we're hoping it will be.
Absolutely. Agreed 100%.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
When you said that we're not all the same and that, things that work for me won't work for you and things that work for you won't work for me, that reminds me of a story that I would like for you to share, if you don't mind. You have 3 friends in Las Vegas and they all came to you and said, hey man, we want to lose some weight. We're all going to do the exact same thing. Tell me a story about your 3 friends.
Well, the problem is everyone is coming from a different direction. Everyone may have the same philosophy in their mind or the same end goal, and that they know what the resolution will be, where they lose weight and they're comfortable and they feel better in and out of their clothes. That's their goal. The problem is this person can be a smoker. This person may not be a smoker. This person drinks too much. This one is active. This one is not. This one works 80 hours a week. This one is financially stable and doesn't work. This one is retired.
First off, I know which two of those I want to hang out with. Okay, go ahead.
So you're funny. But the thing is, because everybody's coming from a different direction, and if I can, I want to just interject something. I've been waiting on 3 sets of identical twins for probably 40 years. And I've known them. They're my friends, and I've known them. I see them every once in a while. I've been through all their nutrition, all their kids, and everything with them. And I'm talking 3 sets of identical twins, now all in their 60s.
When you say I've been waiting on them, what does that mean?
In health food stores, consults,
Okay.
sat down and did one-on-ones with them, went through them with surgeries and
Okay.
worked with them with their medication and doctors and all that stuff. So I know them very well intimately. But what I learned is even though you may be looking at these 2 people that are still genetically almost identical, even though you can see little differences in them over the years, their nutritional supplementation and their diets and everything could be completely different because they're both coming from a different place. One is taking care of themselves, the other one didn't. This one didn't smoke or drink. This one did way too much of both. This one has gained a lot of weight. This one is kept thin. So they are completely different, although identically genetically. So if identical twins could be not fitting in the same box, all of us cannot fit in the same box. And I think we just need to remember that, we have to take into consideration the things we've done, the things we should have done, where we're really trying to be, and all of that measured with us being patient, that it's going to take a while to get there.
To your point, there is a pair of identical twins.
Okay.
These are 2 dudes. They both went into the Navy. They both became pilots. They both became astronauts. They both flew in space. One of them became the commander of the International Space Station. He was the commander there for a year. His name is Scott Kelly. At the time that I interviewed him for my show, he had the record for the most consecutive days in space by any human. He has a twin brother named Mark who did all of the same things, except that he did not spend a year in space. NASA used both of them in a study to see the effects that, long time exposure to no gravity or whatever would have. And so Mark Kelly down here on Earth and Scott Kelly up in the International Space Station, they ate the exact same diet. They did the exact same exercises. They did everything exactly the same to the best that they could because of the differences in location. But that study showed that, like you just said, some of the things that worked for one of them didn't work for the other one. The study was cool because it showed kind of the differences that a zero gravity environment would have on a human body, but it was kind of inconclusive because they couldn't figure out if the results of the study were altered because of the lower gravity or if they're just genetically that much different, even though they're identical. So I love that, like, even with twins, everything doesn't work for everybody. So I love that that's part of the story that you share when you're doing these talks. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things, but first I got to know, you live in Las Vegas.
I do.
You have horses and participate in rodeos. What does that mean? I'm in San Antonio. This is rodeo capital of the world. What are you talking about?
We did competition for a very long time, barrel racing and roping and that kind of stuff. And you'll find me now probably in the announcer's booth more than anything else because I talk and I go to big events, and especially if they're benefit events like Alzheimer's and cancer and Down syndrome and stuff like that, you're going to find me up there announcing because I refuse to let them pay an announcer when I can do it. So for me, I do a lot of benefits. I do them, in Arizona. I've done them in Utah. I do them at one of the equestrian centers out here in Las Vegas when I have time because I travel so extensively. It's fun because on my podcast, I've opened up the door to professional athletes and entertainers as well, just kind of broadening beside just the natural products industry, all those great guys and ladies that I have on. So I'm learning about, what they do behind the scenes because it's important. These are amazing athletes. And I don't think people know, what it takes to run a 1,200-pound horse, you know what I mean? And be able to be one with this horse. It takes a lot of work. So you'll see me most of the time now up in the announcer's booth and working with all my friends that come out here for national finals, every year in December, the top 15 in every category. And a lot of my friends make that top 15 and I get to interview them as well. So, it's a lot of fun. And I love horses and I love dogs. I was raised around them and swore to God that I'd never be into it again. And here we are. So you get it in your blood. I don't think you can change your heritage and your genes that way. I think if you're meant to do it, you're meant to do it.
I love it. You have spent the vast majority of your life in the natural products industry.
I have.
Why? Why did you stay? you've had so much experience behind a microphone, talking to people, networking, doing all this stuff. What compelled you to stay in this particular industry for your entire life?
I love being able to provide answers in one of the biggest categories that needs the most attention, which is health and well-being, and dealing with the frustration and the naiveness or the lack of knowledge in those areas. I do tons and tons of Zooms, I do tons of meetings, but I'm at my best when I'm in front of an audience. You know, when I'm in front of them, if I'm sitting at a table with a staff with a health food store with 8 to 10 people, or if I'm in front of an audience with 10,000, you know, I do really well because I like the face-to-face camaraderie. Even with the podcast, 40 some years of doing radio on a phone. And now I get to actually see the person I'm talking with and have this wonderful interaction that changes the whole value and the whole tone of the interview that you can't do on a phone. Being able to see people's faces and interact and get to know them. And to me, that's wonderful. And I'm the same way in front of an audience. I've never met a stranger, and I drive my friends crazy because we walk through all these big venues and I talk to everybody. They always say the same thing. Must you talk to everyone? And I'm like, yeah, that's who I am. I didn't do well with the pandemic. I didn't do well at home. I'd called the company that I was working with and I just told them, I said, look, you got to get me on the road. I said, I'm talking to my dogs. I'm talking to my horses. They're talking back. We're having conversations. I need people. So they got me back on the road because I think that that's what it's about. That's where my passion is, being able to give people information, give them enough to make up their own minds, but also give them the correct tools so they can actually make better, wiser, healthier decisions, because that's what it's all about. That's why, and I thought about it over the years, what else could I do? And probably a lot of things, but nothing that's going to have this kind of impact on the passion in my heart.
All right. This next question is going to sound disrespectful. I don't mean it that way at all. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You have allergies.
I do.
Sometimes they're severe even. It took you 40 years to get your Las Vegas allergies under control, and you're an expert.
Mm-hmm.
What hope do the rest of us have? We're not experts. I live in San Antonio. I have the worst allergies. What hope do I have if it took you, an expert, 40 years to get yours under control?
I think that as our bodies go through and age and continue to move toward the end part of our life, we go through changes.
Are you saying I'm in menopause?
I am. And I grew up in the Midwest. In the Midwest, I was allergic to birch trees, maple trees, ragweed, and goldenrod. I had them my whole childhood. I'd moved to the coast. I had no allergies. I moved to Las Vegas. I had no allergies for probably 10 years. All of a sudden, it was mulberry, oleander, Bermuda grass, juniper, Italian cypress, and then I had it. I never had it really bad, but I had it enough that it was annoying. And then I started some different nutritional supplements. I changed the diet, cut back on the dairy, did all that stuff. Allergies disappeared for 10 years. And then all of a sudden they came back again. So it's either that I let my resistance go down, or my body was focusing on other things it thought more important, or we have a lot more things that are coming at us. When I first moved here, it was mostly desert. There really wasn't a lot of stuff here. There were a lot of mulberries and oleanders at that point, but we had very little people living here. And now everybody's here, and they all brought their plants with them and their swimming pools and everything else. So we have all this topography that's here now that we didn't have before. So you may have gotten some of those allergies under control, but you're also kind of like aimed in that, or you're predestined toward having allergy problems. And now you have all these new plants, so you may develop new allergies to things you never were allergic to. So it's a perpetual process. I mean, I know what to do. I know how to do with it and how to deal with it. And I get flare-ups once in a while, but not that much. Nothing like before, because I kind of took control of it and I know what to do, and I don't just use something from the drugstore to kind of cover it up. I try to build my resistance so it deals with it more effectively. But the world in Vegas, and like other parts of the world, Texas as well, it's gotten more populated. People are encroaching in on those wide open territories. A lot of people are moving in. It's the same thing here, and they're bringing their plants. So new allergies kind of pop up. I was just on the East Coast. I was there for 2 weeks with the humidity, not a sneeze, nothing. But I have a feeling if I moved there and I stayed there within a couple of years, everything they have back there might become a problem. I hope that makes sense.
It does. I'm so glad I asked. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
42 years as a talk radio host.
Yeah.
Why'd you quit?
Just because radio has changed. There was a time, if you think back, if you're older like me and you think back, obviously a little bit before me, but you go back to like the 50s and 60s where the whole family would sit around the big radio in the living room and everybody would listen to shows. But that's how radio was for a long time. People knew when your shows were coming on. If I was doing 2 or 3 a day, they would be in front of their radio. They'd be in the car. They'd be listening because that's when I was on. They didn't have streaming at that point. They didn't have, anything else where people could listen. There was no other platform. So it just gets to the point that now we have podcasts and people can be at the gym and they could be listening to a podcast while they're on the treadmill. And it's been kind of interesting that has been and has allowed people to be able to be flexible with their knowledge and do it on their own time schedule. I mean, look at Las Vegas. We're a 24-hour town. People are awake when they should be sleeping, and people should be sleeping when they're awake because 24-hour town. So people are on different schedules. So I just decided that it was time to move on from it because regular radio has changed so dramatically. And then I started really doing my research on podcasts. And I thought to myself, why not put something out there? And then when people want to listen, they can. And that just made the most sense.
And you already had the setup at your house, right? Because
I did.
For a while, you were doing that radio show from your house, right?
I did at the studio for many years, but then I moved everything home.
ISD line or whatever it's called, right?
I had ISDN forever, and then we moved to a Rolodex, kind of file where I'd record it and then send it. And now today, things like Zoom and Riverside and stuff like that, it's unbelievable. I love it. I think that we have a lot of technology to play with today, and I think we can bring a really good message and make it clear and make it audible, and at the same time be able to deliver a message. I like that people can go on like a Spotify or something and just listen to an audio when they're driving, like an audiobook almost. And I like when they're sitting down, they can actually watch the people that they want to see interact. I love that availability.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Warning. Not listening to Fascination Street podcast may cause unexpected side effects. Side effects may include sudden fits of boredom, irrational curiosity about everything you missed, the inability to name your favorite podcast interview, spontaneous ignorance of obscure celebrity stories, talking to coworkers about nothing because you didn't hear the latest episode. Other symptoms may include excessive use of the phrase, "Wait, what happened?" Chronic seriousness with no trace of laughter or delight, unexplainable urge to scroll aimlessly instead of being entertained. In rare cases, not listening may lead to wandering aimlessly through podcast apps, overexposure to true crime reruns, and thinking you're cooler than you actually are. If you find yourself experiencing any of these symptoms, stop what you're doing immediately and download Fascination Street Podcast. Ask your podcaster if Fascination Street Podcast is right for you. Spoiler alert, it is.
Let's get back into it.
I'm going to ask you about some things, and I want you to tell me why they're important and why I should care about these things, okay?
Sure. Yes, sure.
Let's talk about inflammation. Why is that important, and why do I care about inflammation?
Well, if you asked 100 people in the middle of Times Square what inflammation was, almost everyone would say arthritis. It's one of the things that inflammation does cause to be worse and to degenerate and cause more deterioration in the body. But inflammation is also eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, seborrhea. It's also an upset gut stomach. It's a urinary tract. It's a bladder. It's a kidney infection. Everything in your body where there's a state of heightened acceleration of a problem in your body is usually inflammation driven. Now, that being said, inflammation is necessary. Because if you're cut, if you're healing, if you're coming out of surgery, if you had an accident, inflammation is what brings the blood and the nutrients to do the healing of the sores and the wounds or the recovering from surgery. Our problem is we live in a country where most of our foods are inflammatory. We eat processed foods, junk food, fast food, garbage food, and all of it is inflammatory driven. So it can actually raise our levels of inflammation in our body versus going to like Greece and eating an anti-inflammatory diet like the Mediterranean diet. That doesn't raise your inflammatory levels. It actually helps to lower them. So the thing is, we have to understand that inflammation is important. People say, I want to get rid of my inflammation. No, you want to manage your inflammation. And that's where things like omega-3 fatty acids come in and things like a good quality turmeric, boswellia, vitamin E, a good multiple vitamin, a good methyl B complex, using some nutrients to really make a difference. But you have to lay the foundation of the home before you build the walls. And the foundation is rest and sleep, plenty of hydration, plenty of water, activity, movement, eating a diet that is healthy and nutritious, that brings in the foods that make a difference, positivity, and getting rid of negativity, finding some level of happiness and joy. Those are all the foundations of building your home with the rebar and the cement. From there, you build the walls, and the walls are the nutrients and the things that you can do to make a difference. It doesn't mean you have to run to the doctor and get an anti-inflammatory, although they have their place. You can do things naturally and many times get as good or better results without the end result of side effects.
Love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How about stress? Why do I care about stress, man?
Well, for some people, with me, stress sometimes can be very motivating. It actually can kick me square in the pants and get me to finish an article that I'm due. Then I wait until last minute, or, get me to pack because I'm leaving the airport in 2 hours, or, I've got to fit in 2 more podcasts because I slacked off during the week and I got to get 2 in before noon the next day. And I got to call my guest and plead to have them come on. Thank you, please. I owe you. And it can be motivating, but for most people, stress is debilitating. It's harmful. It can do everything from cause heart disease, increase your blood pressure. It can elevate your blood sugar. It can keep you from sleeping. It can cause insomnia. It can cause nervousness, anxiety, depression. It can slow your body's healing powers down. It keeps you from being focused. It affects your cognitive levels. And if your stress is out of control, you need to make changes. What do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. There is no different outcome. If you're doing the same thing over and over, you're going to have the same thing. And in this case, a stressed out, burnt out, fried out life. So we have to make changes, but we don't have to make them all at once. And that's where the overwhelming part comes, because people see this wall of possible changes and they're like, I can't do it. I'll deal with it. No. Start with your diet. Start with getting a good quality night's sleep. Start drinking more water. Start going for a walk every night. Walk that overweight dog. They got fat during the pandemic and we haven't let them lose their weight yet. So, get outside, be a little bit more social. People that are really stressed tend to be reclusive many times. Get out and talk to some people. Talk to people. You have to have interaction. Just a short conversation interaction can actually balance your stress very effectively. But find a resolution and realize, yes, I'm under stress, and admit it. There's no shame in being stressed. Very positive, amazing people that are the go-to people in the world that are solving and helping everybody else around them are usually the ones that are the most stressed themselves, because they aim nothing at benefiting themselves, because they're putting everything they have out to everybody around them to make their lives better. Kudos, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
Love it. Let's talk about diet.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned diet as one of the foundations for building the house. Again, like we talked about earlier, there's so many places that will tell you what diet is better than this diet, and this diet is better than that diet, and that diet is going to kill you. And I just actually heard a doctor talking about the right way to eat. And he said this, and it made me laugh so hard I stopped listening right at that moment. He said, everybody says their diet is better and this diet is better than that diet, but I eat the right way. I am 100% keto. Plus heart healthy grains and a bread that's made out of seeds. Now, that is not keto. Neither one of those other two things are keto. So, right, I just started laughing and I stopped listening. How do we know what is the right diet? And is it like the things that you say earlier where different diets work better for different people? Like, how do we find this diet information?
I think we need to stop looking at things like it's a miracle.
But wait a minute, what about that tiny little pill that's really cool now and everybody on the West Coast is taking it? Isn't that a miracle?
Yeah. It's a miracle they're still taking it.
But there's no consequences, right?
No. There are things that slow down your appetite. There are things that give you energy. There are things that help your exercise work more effectively, things that increase your heart rate, things that may help you burn fat a little bit better. But when it comes to food, the diet that works the best for you is the diet that works the best for you, the one you will stick with, the one that you will get behind. And I tell people, you have to give yourself and make a contract with yourself that whatever way of eating you choose, and I do that rather than calling it a diet, rather call it a way of eating, you give yourself 90 days, because it takes a while for your body to let go and change and process and move on from a very unhealthy way of living that most of us live. If I had to choose one that I think most people would be able to eat and probably see dramatic differences, not just in their weight and their gut and their belly and their energy, but also in their overall health, their well-being, their cardiovascular health, their cognitive health, would be a Mediterranean diet. And it goes back to the question from before. It is an anti-inflammatory diet. It makes a dramatic difference because you're eating the best of all the categories, and you can pick within there. And I usually tell people, pull up in Google Mediterranean diet and the foods allowed. Pick your foods from that list. If it's not on the list, don't bring it in, because it's either processed or it's inflammatory or it's not going to work with the program. And I have never put anyone or recommended a Mediterranean diet for someone for 3 months that did not lose weight and feel better than they have in their entire life, because it made a dramatic difference. Real quick story. I have a friend of mine, twins. This is another twin story. Both overweight, both smokers, both drinkers, waited on them for many, many years.
Is it the same astronaut twins I was talking about? It sounds
No.
just like them.
No.
Overweight smokers.
No, hardly. One goes to Greece. She gets a year's stay over there. She was an art teacher, and her friend had a place, and she went there and she lived there for a year. While she was there, she found out that you have to walk a half a mile into the town to be able to get fish and vegetables and fruits and all that. So she wasn't a walker, so it took her a little while to get into the routine, but she started to like it. And then she met a woman there that lived in Greece that taught her how to cook. So she said, I'll teach you how to cook if you teach me how to paint. And she was right near the water. So she would set up and people started catching on and they were coming over and she was giving classes in painting, sitting by their easels. And everyone was teaching her the recipes. She got really good at it. So she started giving cooking classes and painting classes. She's there the whole year. Feels fantastic. Her doctor there in Greece got her off all her medications. She loses a ton of weight. She comes back to the States. She doesn't even look like she's related to her twin. She's thin and tan and healthy, on no medication, not drinking, not smoking, none of that. Saw the two of them and I was just like, I couldn't believe the dramatic difference. And she was happy. She lasted 3 weeks here, 3 weeks, moved back to Greece. She said, I can't do it. She goes, I don't want to be here. It's unhealthy here. I need that environment. So environment is part of it. Having a support group around you is also really important. And choosing something that you can stick with long enough to actually see some change. You know, people stick with things for just a short time. Look at New Year's resolutions. You know, Steve, they do their resolutions for like a week. I saw this cartoon at the beginning of this year and I've seen it before. It's a building and it's a gym. It says January 1st. And then there's a picture below it, and it says January 21st, it's a bar. We do this because we're so impatient. We have the want to. We really want to change. We want to feel better. We want to look better. We want to feel better in our clothes, out of our clothes. And, you know, we want to be better intimately. We want all that good stuff. But sometimes we just don't want to do the work that's involved. That's my answer. I hope I go roundabout. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. I want to talk about certified organic. What is the definition of certified organic?
Probably the easiest definition. And just so you know, organic started in the 40s.
Oh, back when people were huddled around their radios.
Yeah, but it really started to kick in right about 1978, 79, 80. And I remember when I started hearing about organic, and I lived in farm country in the Midwest. So, I mean, I thought it was fantastic because I could eat fruits and vegetables that taste incredible and no chemicals. And it's been that way for a long time. And if you could afford it and you could fit it in your budget and you could do organic, most people choose it. But, you know, we're 45 years later now, and organic has changed dramatically. You still get no chemicals, no herbicides, no GMOs, nothing there. So the crop itself doesn't have any of those chemicals in it or on what's growing. But the soil is a disaster now. We haven't done anything with the soil. You know, we've over-tilled it, and most of the topsoil is blown away. We don't add a lot of good stuff to the soil, and we're learning a lot about the next step, which was regenerative, which actually focuses on the soil. So I tell people, if you're talking organic, you're talking about the crop. If you're talking regenerative, you're talking about the soil. You know, so it does make a difference. Do I still choose organic if I can? Yes. If I can get certified organic and certified regenerative fruits and vegetables, I know I'm getting better quality, better taste, better nutrient value than I would with just plain old certified organic. But is certified organic still good? Absolutely, because you're not getting the chemicals.
This is a weird question.
Okay.
Is certified organic vegan?
Yeah.
What do they use to fertilize organic plants?
In organic, they use a lot of things like horse manure, steer manure.
Okay, so if that's a product of an animal that they use to fertilize these plants, how is that still vegan? If it's growing in...
If they're doing a vegan organic field, then they will do only things that are not animal touched. Like a standard organic, they would go ahead and they would use natural things in the soil, natural things that bring microbiome, you know, benefits of good bacteria into the soil. I'll give you an example. The farm that I work with Kokora, which is down in Costa Rica, they feed their soil by going out in the woods and collecting herbs and collecting bark and trees and roots and leaves and moss. And they bring it back and they chop it all up. And then what they do is they mix things like semolina flour and green bananas, coffee grounds and eggshells and things like that build the soil. And it's basically for helping to build the soil. They put it in 50-pound bags. They put it in 200-gallon water containers and let it seep out. So it's like a liquid mulch.
Like a tea bag?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they do. It just kind of steeps in there, and then they use that in the soil. And what it does is it makes the soil very rich. Organic doesn't focus as much on the soil. Regenerative focuses primarily on the soil, but follows organic standards. The difference is when you see an organic crop, you'll see dirt and then rows and rows of plants. With regenerative, you'll see crops, but you'll see plants and green in between the crops, because they know that if you keep a green belt completely green all over the whole 100 acres, you're going to be drawing a lot of carbon from the environment down into the soil. You're going to build a stronger microbiome. You're going to build a stronger soil that's more nutritive. And with this wonderful solution they mix in the soil, everything grows huge and fast with deep roots, and the nutritional value and the taste and the potency of the things you grow is so much more effective. So the whole idea of organic is wonderful, because there's no chemicals. And that's really the way we started. But as everything else in this country and around the world, we're advancing. And now we have to start looking back because we've ignored the soil. We really haven't paid attention to it. I don't think anyone thought about it until we started really testing the nutritional value of things grown organically. And this is not just here. Around the world, many people are starting to convert their organic farms to regenerative organic farms, because they know the quality and the intensity and the potency and the purity is better, but also the crops are larger. Ric Scalzo, the owner-founder of Kokora, he was actually the man that founded Gaia Herbs 30-some years ago and really brought herbs to the United States, growing at his farm, which was organic in Brevard, North Carolina. His first year on his new farm in Costa Rica, he grew turmeric, and he had a beautiful crop, growing it organically. The next year, he grew it regeneratively, and the crop was 5 times bigger. So there's an added plus there. Around the world, people are making lots of babies. The birth rate is up around the world. It's just very low in the United States. We're not making babies here. But around the world, there's plenty of mouths to feed. And if we can convert to regenerative and people can grow bigger, healthier crops, that's more people being fed. And we're also protecting the soil for generations down the road.
Hey, streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
You mentioned Kokora. Now, you are the Director of Education for Kokora Life.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you came to be the director and why you decided to take that job.
I followed Ric's career for decades, and unbelievably, he's one of the few people in the industry that never did my radio show, which is kind of comical.
That's funny. I was going to ask if that's how you met him.
No. It's just very funny. And then his national sales director and vice president is a very good friend of mine, and I worked with her with other companies and did radio shows with all those companies, and they were looking, and she said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do an interview." So we sat down and we did an interview, the three of us. It was supposed to be like 15 minutes. It was like an hour and a half longer. And I'm like, "Do you need me to sign an NDA?" And they're like, no, we love this. So, and I instantly loved it. I mean, I'm at the age where I want a mission to attach myself to. And the idea of regenerative is a mission. I mean, I'm at that point when I want to make a difference. I want to get us in front of Congress and start doing initiatives for farmers to start being able to switch to regenerative. I want to take a bite out of some of the things that are here and that are coming. And because I'm at this age and with this amount of experience and connections behind me, thank goodness, and blessed, I would like to be able to work on something that I can actually sink my teeth into. And I have never, ever been this happy doing what I'm doing before. I mean, I love being on the air and I still love doing the podcast, but this mission, this regenerative mission is huge. It's barely even beginning, and it's going to do probably 10 times more what organic did in the 80s. So it's a lot of fun.
Kokora is a farm in Costa Rica, or it's a company who owns a farm in Costa Rica. The farm doesn't grow vegetables. They grow herbs and mushrooms. And tell me, what are the products that Kokora grows down in Costa Rica? What are the products? What's the product line for Kokora?
We've got a mushroom line, and we use the mushrooms from Namex. We use their fruiting body mushrooms because they're the purest and they're certified organic. On the farm, we grow ashwagandha, we grow turmeric, we grow skullcap, we grow passion flower, we grow mucuna, herbs that make a dramatic difference. Bacopa, which is wonderful for the brain. So all the herbs that we grow there are herbs that when you grow them regeneratively, you increase the potency because they're growing in soil that's rich. So we're using those. So we have singles, individual nutrients coming out. We have blended combinations like stress formulas and energy formula and stuff like that. All natural herbs, all certified regenerative and or certified organic. And the part that really attracted me, and I really knew that Ric was going to do this anyway, was glass bottles, which are very important to me. vegan formulas, which I think are amazing, using vegan capsules. Not that I cater to vegans, even though I have tons of friends that are vegan and vegetarian, and I write articles and lecture to a lot of the groups and organizations. But if you're going to make a line of products and you're going to use capsules that are maybe gelatin-based that a vegan or vegetarian will not use, you are not making yourself accessible to that very large growing audience. So when we have the choice to go with vegan capsules, I'm like, yeah, let's do that. I want to open the door. I want my friends to be able to take these Kokora products. I don't want them saying, well, I can't use that because it's not vegan.
Were you part of the decision-making process for that?
I've been with Ric since the very beginning. We talk about ingredients. The formulas are Ric's because they're in his mind, and I would love to spend about an hour in his mind, but there's so much in there, I don't know if I could handle it because he's brilliant. But we've talked about products. We've talked about dosages. We have a wonderful team working together. We've designed labels together. We've designed the boxes together. I mean, it's an amazing team because there's such a camaraderie. And you know what it's like in the world today. It's very hard to find gratuitous situations that are actually very pleasing and enjoyable. And what I mean by that is to be able to work with someone that is so uplifting and so positive and so thankful and so gracious that all you want to do is work and enjoy the process and be a part of it. No stress. Do we get busy? Oh, yeah. And I mean, my schedule, I'm crazy. I travel constantly. And that's just busy kind of on the go kind of stress. But stressed out stress? No, not a drip. And that's because the environment is so conducive to a very happy level of positivity. If that, I mean, not to get too tree huggery, but that's what it's all about to me, is being happy. And it's all about this stage of my life. I want this to be meaningful. I want it to make a difference. I want to bring great information, and I want to be part of a movement that is actually going to change the course of the planet.
I agree about the gratuitous situations. I can't stand my boss, and I hope he hears this. I can't stand my boss. I'm self-employed. So you have this podcast. It is called Honest Health with Dr. Jeffrey Burke. Now, if I understand this correctly, you did a series on your podcast where for each episode you covered one of the 14 or 15 or so herbs that Kokora grows down in Costa Rica. Am I right about that? Did you do that series?
Still in the process.
Okay. Why did you want to do that where you spent an entire episode focused on one individual crop or product?
There's a lot to learn being in our industry, being on this side, working in a store, working hand in hand. There's thousands of products. And I think we probably forget more than we're constantly cramming into our head all the time because there's so much information to know, so many changes, so many counterindications with medications and things like that have dramatically changed. So what I decided was if I interview Ric, one herb at a time, to give people a deep dive on that herb, they're going to understand that herb from top to bottom, whether it's somebody that's working in the industry or someone that's just, wanting to take it and they want to know everything they can know. I think it's wonderful because when you get done, you're going to be like, I get it. I didn't know all those things. Now I know, but I also make sure that we discuss the difference between growing it regularly and growing it regeneratively so people understand the difference of potency and things like that. So we're going to actually be doing, I think, about 15 or 16 total. I'm also doing it with Bill Chaffee from Namex. We're doing deep dive mushroom classes as well. I want this to be a series. I want people to be educated. I want people to go back and say, I forgot that. I'm doing this every day and I forgot it because it's information they can use with anybody's line in the industry. They could have 20 ashwagandhas at their store. Knowing the information, the history and the process and the uses and all the stuff about ashwagandha because you really listen to a deep dive, like a little audio book on that individual herb. But you'll also be a little bit, recouping the knowledge that you might have lost along the way. Because I'm telling you, there is so much to learn, and I have a lot of friends that are doctors and they'll tell you the same thing. They'll say, I can't even keep the medication straight. He goes, every month we get 5 more blood pressure medicines, another blood thinner, 6 more antibiotics. He said, I can't even keep it straight anymore. There's so many. He goes, I find myself putting everybody on the same things. And I said, he goes, I know, everybody's different. They have an egg timer. So many of them, they go in, they got 3 minutes with the patient and they got to get all the information out, everything they can. And then they're on to the next patient. That's just reality, so they end up recommending a lot of the same medications. And I don't think that's always the right thing because once again, we don't all fit in the same box. If I give people the information and I interview Ric and he gives them this amazing kind of detailed, easy to understand, conversational amount of information, they're going to walk away and say, I love that. I know a lot about that now. Someone asks me, I can talk about it. That's what I want.
And each one of these in this series You're talking with the founder of the company?
With Ric Scalzo. It's funny because you'll see the jungle in back of him, because I try to do it with him when he's in Costa Rica, because he travels to North Carolina, to Arizona, to the center. If you listen, you could hear monkeys and toucans and everything back in there. So I've been trying to get him to train a monkey to run across the screen and wave and keep going, but he hasn't been able to do that yet.
Well, the day is young.
True.
What's the biggest takeaway so far that you have gotten? I know you said you've done 5 of these so far in this series. What's the biggest takeaway for you personally? What's the biggest thing you've gleaned just from these first 5?
That people have thanked me for having a resource where they can be reminded of the things that they forgot, as well as learning some new things they never knew. You know, it's really funny. My mom is 90 and she listens to my podcast, and she'll call me up and she'll say, you know, I listened to that one you did on passion flower. And I said, and she goes, I need that. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, I'm a little edgy, a little nervous during the day, but I don't want to get into, was a nurse. She goes, I don't want Xanax or Ativan or any of that stuff. I'd rather try that. So I sent her some passion flower. So I know that it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's educating, you know, and she was a hard sell because she was medical to the bone. And now she'll do everything she can holistically. If there's an alternative, she'll go that way. But she was very old school.
Interesting. I love it. Again, the podcast, Honest Health with Dr. Jeffrey Burke, it is available on Spotify and YouTube. Tell me about the YouTube version. So Spotify, we can hear it. YouTube, we can see it.
Yeah, you get to see us and our gorgeousness. A great conversation, which I like. I think a lot of people react. Some people are audio, some people are visual, some people are both, you know, because I have a lot of people, they'll say when I'm driving, I like to listen. I have a friend that's a rep for a big company, and he goes, when I'm driving my Washington trip, I have a lot of window time. So I'll do 4 or 5 of your podcast and get caught up. He goes, but I'm at home and I'm sitting at my desk. I'll have it on the screen so I can watch it and listen at the same time. So I think that's just the variety. And I made it easy. If you go to my webpage, which is just drjeffreyburke.com, if you tap on the Honest Health logo, it'll take you to Spotify. If you tap on the YouTube logo, it takes you right to the YouTube channel. Oh, and I'm supposed to say for my producer, make sure you're subscribed. That's new for me.
Yeah. Smash that subscribe button. Pew, 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 pew. One of the things that you talk about a lot, I would call it the thing that you talk about the most besides regenerative agriculture, is ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you care so much about ashwagandha, and why do I care?
Ashwagandha is just the herb that I recommend the most for the world that we're in today, which means restless, irritated, anxious, depressed, mood swingy, hormonally imbalanced, ill, burnt out, fried out. Ashwagandha is a wonderful balancer that helps to bring things in line and in balance. It's very successful. It's very healthy. It's very natural to be able to use something that makes a difference. It has a long, long history in Ayurvedic medicine. If you study traditional Ayurvedic in India or China, they've been using it for hundreds of years. So it has longevity behind it. And I think that it's something that people can see a difference kind of quickly, which to me is a great way of satisfying, once again, the impatience that's out there. Because if you take like a Zoloft, or if you take that for a while, or you take a Xanax, I mean, an hour later, you're sitting on the couch and drooling, you know, so that's something that's very quickly that you see. So if I can make a recommendation on the natural side that may give you similar results, and you're able to feel a little bit of a difference, sometimes it just takes about that much difference of the way you feel, and it's enough to say, I'm going to give this a fair shake. I want to give this a try. And I just think that ashwagandha is just one of those things. You see a lot of ashwagandha today also in men's formulas that are out there, like a lot of the testosterone formulas that are out there. They use amino acids like citrulline and arginine, and they use ashwagandha because it also is something that helps to release and kind of build natural levels of testosterone for men. So that's another whole area of ashwagandha. So there's a lot of popularity out there, but I do see the biggest emphasis focusing on calmness and just evenness and trying to find our happy place, if you will.
Now, I'm a very busy guy, and I feel like I'm always running around with my pants on fire. So that scene that you described of drooling on the couch sounds very restful. Can you, as a doctor, prescribe me some Zoloft, please? I appreciate it. Thank you.
No.
Dr. Jeffrey Burke, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I do a lot on LinkedIn.
I said social media. That doesn't count. That's like Indeed. Come on now. It's monster.com.
I'm changing the face of LinkedIn. You see my page, it's completely different than anybody else there. I'm making changes.
All right. Well, everybody go check him out on LinkedIn.
But I have Instagram. I have Facebook, and of course, my webpage where there's a lot of information. And of course, you can also follow Kokora Kokora's on Instagram, Facebook, and then their webpage as well. Amazing graphics, wonderful videos, things that you can keep a focus on. But like I said, most of the platforms you can find me on. I'm pretty easy to find.
And for the listener, we've said it a million times, but Kokora is Kokora. And the website again is drjeffreyburke.com.
Yes, sir.
Well, Dr. Jeffrey Burke, before I let you go, man, is there anything we didn't talk about or I didn't specifically ask you about that you wanted to talk about today? Did we cover the big bits?
We did, and in a really good way. I really appreciate it. I like your vibe. It's cool. It's easy to chat with you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you. Dr. Jeffrey Burke, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic, flying to Costa Rica and pulling mushrooms out of the ground schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was an honor.
Well, the pleasure was all mine, and you have a great rest of your week, my friend.
You too. Be well.
Take it easy, buddy. Thank you so much, man.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Ven.
Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.